Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're so happy to have you on Voices of Video. And again, we're bringing you another excellent interview conversation. We like to host real conversations here on Voices of Video. So thank you for joining us. If you're watching on the replay, by the way, you do have the option to watch live. So, an advantage to watching live is you can pose questions for our guests, and we always get to our questions, to our live questions. So it's a bit more interactive that way. But let's go ahead and jump in here. And today I am joined by Predrag Mandelbaum. So first of all, thank you for joining us, Predrag.
Thank you, Dan, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
you're here to talk to us about more screens, and why don't we just jump in there and tell us what you do? What is more screens?
What's more screens? More screens is a company specializing in, let's say, an end-to-end OTT IPTV solution and services based on our in-house products. Let's say our mission is to deliver video and streams on any screen, any device, as we like to say.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you would like to hear more about it. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a big mission when you talk about delivering video to every device. That's actually very hard to do. Um, so,
Almost any device. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's hard enough to deliver one stream reliably and in good quality to one device, much less, all the various mobile phones and car entertainment systems and connected televisions and game consoles, media players, all of that. So
Yes,
why
that's
don't
something.
you
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So maybe you can give us a really quick before we talk about your product and the technology. Um, Tell us how you begin. What's the history of the company? How did it start? Why did you start it?
Okay, we simply started with live events in '99, when we built the first company in Italy, and that was beginning. So, starting from live streaming at that time using real networks, Windows Media Services, then Flash, and so on. And easily, demand was also for video on demand. Then we started producing video on demand, recording streams. Then let's say customers ask, okay, but how are we going to manage them? So we started building a kind of content management system that we at that time called video management system, and that was beginning, let's say, of OTT and web TV platforms. And it is
Mm,
easy, with going beyond the future. Then we had to deliver that to mobile, to smart TVs, to different smart TVs, and more smart TVs, and more set-top boxes, and so on. So let's say that was the journey, like for last 5 years.
interesting. Yeah. And so your engineering team, where are they based, and what does the structure of the company look like?
So we are having several offices. Let's say the headquarters are in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is the main engineering team. Then we have another two offices in Serbia and Croatia, which are more for support and operations.
Hmm.
Plus, we have another, let's say, the fourth office, which we use for our Italian customers, which is based in Italy.
Hmm.
So let's say engineering it's done centrally in Bosnia, consisting like 30 good, very skilled engineers, and the
Hmm.
rest of the team it's everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a
yeah,
modern company today.
yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, very interesting. Well, why don't you tell us, you have built a product, and, so I'll let you introduce it. and then tell us exactly what it can do and how it works.
Yes, okay. I don't know where to start from. It's simply, OTT consists of several ecosystem components, such as CDN, cloud, DRM, back office management, subscription management, so on, plus client types. So what we provide as a software company and SaaS company, we provide, let's say, a full service platform in the cloud, which allows customer to manage content, to ingest content, to transcode live VOD, audio on demand, to catalog the content, and then, of course, to decide the rules for distribution, locations, geographies, whatever. Plus, of course, at the top, behind, there are analytics, very deep analytics, detailed analytics, reporting part, user management, and in case there is a need for integration, there are open APIs to integrate with any kind of payment processing, billing system, and so on. So let's say that's in short.
Yeah. So, our listeners are typically engineers, or, they're involved in maybe engineering management. So they're very technical. Maybe you can share, are you developing all of the components from the ground up? Are you leveraging some commercial technologies and solutions? Are you doing both? Explain to us how this is built, and if you can, what solutions you are using. So if it's open source projects, what are you
Yeah.
building on?
I think that as any other company, we started from open source, leveraging most of good open source technologies such as Nginx, Zabbix for monitoring, Elasticsearch for analytics. Then, of course, there is a component of Python, Java, PHP, or more than HTML5 technologies for client apps and native
Mhm.
apps if needed. We also built ARM packager for CDN part. So it means like for packaging dash HLS on the fly encryption. The only third party that we are using currently, it's of course Widevine or Microsoft Play Ready or Apple Fair Play for DRM services.
For DRM, yeah,
More or
exactly.
less open source.
Interesting. Okay. And do your customers bring the content, or do you, bring content to them as well? I mean, is it a complete white label OTT service, content and everything, or do they have to bring their own?
No, they have to bring their own content. We don't deal with the content, unfortunately,
Yeah.
even we have a lot of requests for such a
Yeah, of
service.
course. Of course. Yeah.
We are engineering company building technologies.
Yeah.
So it's completely another business for us. But
Yeah.
let's say all of them, they have own content and licensing rights.
It
Yes.
makes sense. Makes sense. Through the years, at various points, I've been involved in attempting, like you say, to support kind of an end to end with content. It's tough, it's very tough. Unless you are the licensor of that, or the licensee of that content. It's just, it's hard to sort of two step content and really build a business. You just can't get the premium stuff,
Yeah,
and
that's too
that's what
complicated,
that's
let's
what
say.
everybody wants. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's go back and talk about the devices, because your mission is quite big, to support every device. So today, are your customers primarily delivering to mobile? I notice set top boxes are really featured on your website. That's very important. Uh, of course, connected televisions. So maybe you can tell us, what devices are kind of most popular, and what do you find that you really have to focus on supporting?
Let's say that today, uh, things haven't changed for last 3 4 years. So today, mobile it's a must have. It's a must.
Of
But
course, iOS, Android. Yeah.
yes, that's always because it's also used, to facilitate provisioning on big screens, such as
Hmm.
smart TVs, Samsung's, LG, Hisense in Europe. Let's say in the United States, it's mostly around the Roku or Apple TV, which
Yeah.
in Europe we don't have that much. And then Fire TV as well. But let's say
Hmm.
the top three today, I would call it mobile, Samsung, LG in Europe, Hisense as well, United States, mobile, Roku, and Fire TV.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's it. And of course, for telecom operators, set-top box is still mandatory, and you know, it's an Android TV as well. I forgot to
Yeah.
mention.
Yeah. Are you seeing growth in Android TV? I know that a lot of the set-top boxes are running, the Android TV OS stack,
Almost
application
most of
stack, I
them,
guess.
almost most of them are Android TV or Android ISP still. And but in terms of smart TV devices, let's say I have no recent data. Android TV is growing.
Hmm.
Even Samsung and LG are the first two, uh, how to say, levels. And in US, on first place, it's a Roku. Android TV is something that still has to grow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
today it's very popular. It's very popular. And there are, of course, retail Android TV set-top boxes, which
Mhm.
is used by many people around. So, yes.
Yeah. Understand. So let's go back to the streaming again. A lot of our listeners, as I mentioned earlier, are
Yeah.
technical. They're engineers or they're involved, in engineering decisions, and they're especially usually in like the video encoding area. So a lot of the interest, the questions we get are around codecs. Is AV1 being adopted? What percentage of streams are HEVC? Are you distributing mostly HD? Do you distribute UHD? All those kinds of things. So maybe I would like to know. There's a lot of talk, at least in the U.S., and I'd be curious in Europe if this is also true. Um, a lot of services are adding a live streaming component to their package, if you want to talk about it that way. And for some people, like a Netflix is one example. The live streams are reserved to somewhat infrequent but very high profile live events. So like they recently hosted the Mike Tyson fight with a social media influencer. And they've done, I believe, to date 9 events. Maybe there's another one that snuck in there that I'm not accounting for. So there's that business model, and then there's all the way to services that have like linear TV. So they still have all the VOD. You can still select a movie, or you can binge watch your favorite TV show, but then they have live TV. What's the business model in Europe? Is it similar, or is it all VOD file based content?
Look, it's really, that Europe, it's a pretty fragmented continent. So each
Hmm.
country has its own preferences. But
Hmm.
let's say most of telecoms, for instance, they are very traditional. So they are offering linear TV, catch-up TV as well, plus VOD. And there are few of them offering a kind of pay TV services like pay-per-view events. you
Yeah.
know. We
Okay.
really don't know reason for that because it's probably because of sport rights, because that's the only content
Yeah.
that works for pay-per-view. But it's, let's say, the market is really fragmented, but it's mostly linear TV catch-up plus VOD. And this is how
Okay.
it is. Yes, they have tried in the past providing like transactional VOD stuff like that, but people are not used anymore. With the Netflix having everything on subscription based, it's simply like that. Yes.
Netflix owns the world.
Netflix killed the business.
Oh, killed the business. Oh, that's
Yeah,
okay. That's an interesting perspective.
yeah, that's
Um,
another product. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, explain to me what your back end looks like. Um, are you running your own data centers? Does your customer operate the software? License your software and operate it? Are you running on a public cloud? Talk to me about your architecture.
Okay, so we have, let's say, we have two kind of deployments, mostly for tier two operators or tier one. We are providing on-prem, so it means in their data center, all the software components, transcoding, CDN, and so on. For the cloud, we are running our cloud, so we leased like dozens of data centers worldwide, having our
Mhm.
cluster, and this is, let's say, we call it more screen cloud. Nothing
Mhm.
crazy name, but it's like that.
Mhm.
And they simply get access through VPN to the back office, and then they can manage the services from there. So it means
Okay.
from the part, transcoding if needed. Sometimes we do hybrid deployments, so it means like having the storage or transcoding part, encoding, whatever, on premises, customers' premises, and the rest it's in cloud.
Okay.
So let's a turnkey solution for that.
So I notice you have I think you call it MT Live, and
Yeah,
it's you call it a video processing appliance.
three.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So what is in that? Is it all CPU running software? Are you using GPU? What are you doing in that box?
Yes, it was based. Actually, we are to replace that unit because current hardware manufacturer announced end of life.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
oh,
yeah.
that's always sad when that happens. Yes.
Successful. And that's exactly why we are also considering that thing, which is great.
Mhm.
Let's say this product is based on Intel QuickSync SDK, and
Yeah.
it was really great product at that time because
Hmm.
we could save a lot of power energy to have a very compact two rack units delivering like hundreds of channels in the same unit, plus
Hmm.
having a packaging like a CDN origin for catch-up TV services on the fly encryption and everything. And that's something that we are considering now replacing that one. Even we are also a software company, but we had to make appliance because that was pretty demand from our customers to have something simple that works and cost effective as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say it's like 18 processors inside each unit. Intel, I can't remember even name. And yes, Intel QuickSync was SDK for that.
Yeah.
FFmpeg on top, plus
FF.
the to manage.
Okay. And
on-
and and so you built this on using FFmpeg. That's your
Yeah,
media processing framework, and you're using QuickSync. Makes sense. Well, I've got super good news for you. You're going to like this. Um, we can cut your rack space in half, go to 1 RU from 2 RU, and we can give you 50% more HD channels. And we can give you AV1, HEVC, and H.264. So that's super good news. So you're going to like it.
that's a great news because optimization is in our DNA. That's why we built most of
Yeah.
component in house, and we really like. We think that IPTV OTT, it's always like how to say they are not so profitable business. And
Mhm.
of course, it's not all about technology. It's also content rights, which are pretty expensive and so on. But at the end, let's say our belief and vision is to optimize as much as possible anything from technology to the operations. And
Okay.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say optimize, because I love the word optimize, I use it a lot myself. Just I find myself using the word optimized a lot
yeah,
professionally in my
me
personal
too.
life, um, but it means different things, right? So sometimes optimized is reducing costs. Sometimes optimize is improving performance. Sometimes we want it to be both. um, but maybe you can give some very practical examples of how you're optimizing, because I do find that a lot of vendors, everyone uses the words, and
Yeah,
says,
I
we
know.
have an optimized solution. Yeah. Well, but what does that mean? So,
Okay,
this is your chance to say, what does it mean? How are you optimizing across your full, workflow and all the solutions that you offer?
okay. As you said, I also like word optimization. I will give you an example. I won't mention names, but recently we have migrated existing platform to the new one, which is our platform. Okay, they've been running that platform on 25 servers.
Mm,
Okay, we did
yeah,
it on six.
yeah, yeah.
That's called optimization.
That's called optimization. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the same was with MT Live. Like at that time, they are struggling like having 6, 7, 8 CPU based servers, or even with NVIDIA cards, and
Mm-hmm,
we replaced that with the 2 rack units. Or
mm-hmm,
the latest example, we are working now on that's pretty new, and we're gonna announce the product in 2025. It's let's say we call it AI storage optimizer.
mm,
POC showed that we, let's say, for customers having like operators running services for more than 100K subscribers, there
mm-hmm,
is a huge overload on the storage for catch-up.
mm-hmm.
So we succeed to optimize that by 10 times, like replacing 10 storage units with one
Yeah,
unit only.
yeah.
Yes.
And so how are you doing that?
It's a secret.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yes, yes, but it's we invented a kind of a new file system, and then thanks to AI, we are predicting the most viewed content or most used content and caching them automatically to the cache engines. So it's really reduces overload because the problem with the storage it's a bandwidth at the end.
Yeah,
It writes and reads at the same time.
yeah,
More customers you have, more users are watching different content, then it gets stuck. Then you have to add another storage and another and another.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
imagine operators running like 200 catch-up TV services, it's a huge investment.
Yeah. So it must be the case then in Europe that there's not a unique copy requirement. In the US, and maybe other parts of the world, but I know in the US, there's a lot of content owners that have a unique copy requirement, which means that you can store that content, but like you and I could be watching the exact same stream, or the same program, but my copy has to be unique from yours. you know
Yes,
so that makes it trickier to do what you're talking about, for example.
we have it. We had it working with Deutsche Telekom for MPVR services.
Mm, mhm.
It has to be unique copy for each subscriber,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
makes complicated. Yes,
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
shared copy or unique copy. Yes, that's
yeah,
but
exactly.
we are only for catch up.
Yeah,
It's completely different.
yeah, it's different. Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Well, that's impressive optimization. you know
yes,
there's IBC was really interesting. Your company was at IBC. Did you
yes,
show?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And and I'd be curious to hear if you had the similar discussions with your customers and just operators that you talk to across Europe. It seemed like there is this real push to, if not transition completely off the cloud, off the public cloud, into private data centers, definitely reduce the dependency. So I think kind of hybrid is kind of how most people talk about it. Where there's private data centers, and then maybe you flex into the cloud for added capacity. This really seems to be a pretty significant trend. Now, it's also very difficult for a lot of services because they're over the years their platforms have been intricately interwoven with the services of some of these large public clouds, and so it's not as simple as just moving your containers
Yeah,
to
well,
your
that's how
on-premise servers. But let's set that aside. So my point is that what we heard very plainly is a lot of operators said, yes, we want to move off, we want to run our own infrastructure, we think we can save money. And there's various reasons to do it. Cost savings is number one, um, at least that we heard. But there's flexibility. You have control. And I think there's people who are starting to think that way. Um, I'm curious, are you seeing the same thing? Are your customers telling you that, or are they, going the other way? Are they wanting to go to the public cloud? What are you hearing and seeing?
Yeah, it's yes, it's. I think there are two reasons why they do this. First, it's especially in Europe. Of course, the cost is the first one, but maybe the most not the most important. But we have a really strict users protection regulations. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
do not feel so confident sharing databases. There is a GDPR law, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So in most cases, seen also from our experience working with public broadcasters, for instance, by law we have to host everything in
In
the country.
in the country. Yeah, that's
Not,
right. Yeah.
yes, of course, we can instance public cloud, but why? What for?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like, yes, it's mostly about security stuff, about this user data protection
Hmm.
and the cost, of course, because in some cases, all those big guys are sometimes like X5 times most expensive than
Yeah.
alternative solutions, alternative
Yeah.
cloud providers.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's I think that's the one of the most important reasons. It's simply the data protection and somehow maybe lack of trust. They share their content somewhere.
Hmm. Yeah.
There are
Understand.
many different, yes, but most of operators, let's say telcos, they prefer running everything in their cloud or their data center. And that's
Yeah.
the rule. For others who doesn't have like skills to manage own cloud, of course, they
Sure.
call companies like us, asking us if we can build something for them, manage that, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense. What you're pointing out, and for our listeners who are not maybe as familiar with Europe, is with the way the market functions and works in Europe. Even though I think most services operate in a region, which means multiple countries. But quite often, there does have to be almost like standalone systems that are operating in each country.
yeah,
And so you might be in the Nordics, for example, and of course you understand the breakdown of where this is more a strict requirement, but so you might say, hey, I operate in the region of the Nordics, just as an example. But you're going to have oftentimes sort of dedicated infrastructure within each country that makes up the region called the Nordics. And and this is just very, very different than the US, where you've got this massive land mass, and you can distribute freely anywhere, and
Yes,
even go outside the US and stream in a lot of places freely. So it does. It creates its own challenges, right? So I'm not saying that that's easier, but it is very different. Do you
yes.
find pre-drag that you are often needing to license the software? In other words, sell and license a solution, but also operate the solution? Like,
Yes.
or are your customers able to take it and say, thank you very much, we'll operate it, maintain it?
We- Yes, we have different licensing models, but let's say once you start this kind of business, especially OTT, it's a kind of a merge. So it's a long term relationship. So we have to
Yes.
work closely as one team to operate the platform with them, to help them, to support them, and of
Yeah.
course, platform has to evolve. So there are often many new things to be added, developed, and so
Mhm.
on. So let's say in most cases there is no one-time relationship, like
Yeah.
how to say it, like we had the kiss and that's it. Let's say it's a long term, and of course it works also as a pay as you grow basis. So more customers they have to license, and that's it. So let's say we do operate a lot.
I would assume so. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mentioned at the start of this episode that for those listening live, you are free to enter questions in the chat. There's a couple different ways you can get questions to us, but we actually have some pre-registered attendees who already sent their questions in. So why don't we jump into some of these? Um, and I'm taking these in no particular order, so I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. Uh, the first one here is, maybe you can comment even more specifically about the changes that you're seeing in the media industry with AI. And I think it'd be good to answer that question from two perspectives. So, sort of the immediate, like today, how is AI? And you've already mentioned that you were able to get some storage efficiency using AI. So, you've given one example, but tell us more, like today, and then give us a little bit of the future. Where are you building? Additional capabilities, efficiencies, optimizations, since we both like that word, using AI, and just give us your perspective there.
Yes. Okay. All of us, including our customers and us as vendors, we all have different expectations from AI.
Yeah.
And that's something that we could discuss for years or days. But to start, let's say, okay, I would divide it into two different segments: operations. Okay, from one side, then you have all this stuff about the marketing, user engagement, and so on. And where it is today. So most of them are expecting AI to do work for them, which is not that easy. For instance, if we take today content owners or public broadcasters or any kind of broadcaster, they are looking to use AI, let's say, for dubbing or subtitling services. That's their world. This is what they see. From other side, we do have like this AI optimization of CDN, like smart caching or smart storing or even smart encoding.
Mhm.
That's one. Marketing guys, they would like to have great insights reports to understand user behavior, to understand the pipeline, to have a kind of predictions, and then support teams as well, or let's say sales team to predict churn. That's all doable today. But let's say what we are doing today, it's a kind to, let's say, working exactly to reduce the support, let's say end user support, and to improve or to grow engagement. And we do it in two different directions. One, it's to get a kind of, let's say, tracking all activities, profiling users, segmenting users. We are able to provide recommendation services, or let's say custom notifications, or to provide them with different offerings, different packages, everything
Hmm.
which can help to upsell the services. And from other side, for support guys, creating a kind of virtual assistant which can help to guide you through the platform, to help you to find the content, to discover the content, or to solve the issues. That's something that we are also working on. So there are really many, many things about AI and many different expectations, and we will see. Even we are working also on a very interesting feature, which we also understood working for all those years with customers. Once you provide a report to them of usage of the platform, nobody knows to read it. Nobody
Yeah,
understands what's inside.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they have to analysts to explain that. So AI, it's a good thing to think
And
about, like creating executive summary of reports, for
yeah,
instance. And
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
future, you
That's
know.
Yeah, that's definitely makes sense. I mean, I think we all know that where AI just really shines is making sense of structured and unstructured data.
Yeah,
So like you say, being that analyst who now, rather than just handing off a report, which literally almost no one reads, and those
yes,
who try to read it can't, just don't have the time to make sense of it and really get to the insights. um, that is an absolute perfect application for where AI and these large language models, when we're saying AI, we're really
AI,
talking about
yes.
applications for these large language models, these LLMs. I mean, they just absolutely shine, there. And so I'm seeing the same thing. I guess I'm curious. Again, going back to IBC. Um,
Yeah,
just a couple months ago,
yeah,
uh, there was AI on everyone's booth. There was not
yeah.
a single booth that didn't have AI in the signage and all over. AI demo. Everybody was doing their AI demo. And yet, I think
AI
we all
powered.
Yeah, I think we all, who kind of went and looked and saw a few of the demos, there were some very interesting applications. So I'm not saying that they were all sort of fake, but let's face it, some were not as real as what they were claiming. Um, so where do you see the state of the application of AI in terms of some of these use cases that you mentioned? Are they real? Are they in market? Start by talking about your own solutions. Like, for example, are you doing um, dubbing right now via AI? Are you doing closed captioning via AI? Are you doing translation? And those are use cases I would think a lot of your customers would be very, very interested in.
Yes, they are definitely, especially, let's say, metadata enrichment as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Well, that's another one that the large language models are really
Yes,
good at. I mean, that's
yeah. And especially, let's say, we are also working on, let's say, testing different language models and trying to contextualize the video in order to make it more searchable with more context, stuff like that. Also for automated cataloging.
yeah,
Imagine like usually an average broadcaster is having from 70 to 150K assets on the platform,
yeah,
which you will never
yeah,
discover without a kind of a tool. So yes, we are working. I was also like looking at AI like a buzzword until last year, but finally there are really cool products starting.
yeah,
Let's say on the market which are using AI as a basis and foundation. That's good. So I think, look, it will never replace human, but it will help a lot, and it will be our partner for sure. So we have to invest a lot to make different POCs with customers to try to see, and then we will find the right way how to use it. But again, we
Yeah.
already know what they really need, what they are looking for. But I think only the motivation is different. They like to save the money, and they would like to sell it. So that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that's often where innovators and disruptors um, sometimes get a little bit confused. Is that it's almost like the assumption is, hey, because this is new and cool and innovative, that's the value. And it's like, no. Yes, of course, engineers are always technically curious, and we sell to engineers, so obviously they want to hear about it. They want to see, of course,
Yeah.
they're going to say, "Oh, show me what you're doing with AI," but they're not, they're not willing to pay just simply because I'm doing, some function, with AI. It's the benefit that they pay for. It's that optimization, the cost savings. It's the improvement in quality. It's the improvement in monetization capability, because now I have the ability to give, better personalized experience, for example,
Yes.
and I can serve higher quality ads, advertising, meaning more relevant, to each viewer. I mean, it's all those things. The fact that it's AI doing it, it kind of doesn't matter. It's the benefit of what it
Yes,
brings.
yes, you are completely right. And I will give you another example. We are just at the start, but uh, we have one customer. It's SVOD platform, Netflix like, you know, and that guy was simply providing users like with a trial package, you know, and you know how users are. They subscribe to trial for 7 days, watch everything for free. Then they subscribe with a second, third account to watch
Yeah,
again, or they never,
yeah.
or they simply leave. So what we did, we created a guide. You know, when you click unsubscribe, to get like a kind of personal message. Hello, Mark, but you know, we are sorry that you are leaving, but you know, you have missed this, and that. You should, blah, blah, blah. At the end, we reduced churn by 15%
That's
with one
amazing.
simple.
Yeah. And so in that personal message, were you looking at like content that I had viewed, so that you were even being very hyper relevant to me? So if I was watching a lot of, I don't know, action type movies, maybe you would say, "Oh, we're so sorry to see you leave. You know, before you go, maybe you want to watch," and you
If you,
recommend,
yes,
yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah.
crying.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's really brilliant. And by the way, that answers a question that we have here, of how can you leverage AI to increase engagement. And I really like talking about these use cases, even though we are in the encoding business. So
yeah,
and we're in fact on our ASICs. We can, on our VPU. There's a compute block dedicated to AI, so you can do some
yeah.
really cool things right on the silicon. It's really, really powerful. So we are all about AI, and we're going to be showing some very interesting like auto encoder setup, where we're analyzing the incoming stream, and then we optimize all the parameters for the very best encode, and it's all done automatically. So I say that because yes, we're very focused on the application of machine learning and specifically AI to optimize video. But I really I like to also come back to, but at the end of the day, it's about business impact, and like the example you just gave is business impact. if you reduce churn by, you said 15%.
15%, yes,
Yeah,
with a simple
I
message.
that is, there is not a service provider anywhere that wouldn't say, "Tell me how to do that." you
Yeah,
know, they,
I
they
hope that tell us to explain them how. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So that's really good. Okay, let's go through some more questions here. The next question is, what's the bottleneck for successful streaming? So I I think that's actually a good question. Where's the bottleneck today?
bottleneck it's mostly on CDN part, last mile.
Mm, mm,
It's usually last
interesting.
mile. It's not even CDN,
Yeah,
Sometimes, uh, let's take, for instance, the last live event of Netflix, which is great company with a huge network. Of course, they are
yeah,
specializing more in VOD delivery.
yeah,
For live, I really have no any data how they do what they do. But let's
yeah,
take an example. Okay, how many millions they had during that live stream? But I think the most of the problems have been on the last mile because sometimes you can't control it.
yeah.
And this
Now,
is a close collaboration between CDNs and let's say tier one, tier two operators, but even tier three
yeah,
to make caching and stuff like that.
yeah. So it's an interesting observation, and again, I'm wondering if you can comment on the difference between how CDNs need to operate in Europe versus kind of the rest of the world, where in Europe, again, getting back to the self-contained, there's sometimes the need, not sometimes, quite often because of GDPR. There is the need, especially if you're doing personalized services, you have to use a CDN in that country, and then the next country right next door, you have to use a CDN in that. So people talk about multi CDN strategies. In Europe,
Yes.
you have to be multi CDN, right? Maybe you can give those who aren't as familiar a little bit of a lesson as to how that works in Europe, how CDNs need to operate.
In Europe, there are not that big issues, let's say, but I will give you another example. We just awarded a project from one Israeli company who has to deliver the content to US, okay, and to distribute channels to US. And first mandatory request was you cannot use European CDN. Everything has to go directly from the source to the US. So we have to build additional nodes inside the US. In
Hmm.
Europe, for instance, we see also many operators are even using US servers to deliver content into Europe. So
Yeah.
there is no big difference. About the
Hmm.
content, I
Uh,
see no reason until it works because Europe it's really connected. There are huge exchanges in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, for instance.
yeah.
So there is no big deal about. Let's say it simply works today. Maybe
Yeah.
the user is not that big as in the United States, but again, it works
Yeah.
because
Okay.
again, most of let's say most successful platforms are managed by telecom operators.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having a network.
And your customers are mostly operators. Is that your customer segment?
Yeah, we do have like four lines. It's operators, broadcasters, content providers willing to
Mhm.
launch SVOD services, and sports. That's the core. In the past, we've been working for governments, enterprises, universities, when we started. But let's say those four verticals are the most important ones to us. And what we see as a trend, more and more publishers are getting into broadcast business,
Yeah.
launching new linear channels, which is
Yeah.
also very attractive, you know and but let's say 60% of our business is telecom, 25 broadcasters, and the rest is yes
Yeah.
content order.
Understand.
But
Under
sports it's very Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay. Um, well, this has been a good discussion. Very interesting to hear your perspectives from the from where you sit in the business in the ecosystem. It's one of the things I love about hosting this show, Voices of Video, is I get to hear from so many different types of companies, different parts of the world, different technologies. I really get a diversity, about what's happening in video, and so I enjoy that, and I hope that our listeners, also appreciate that. We know they do because they continue to listen, so that's good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I hope to.
Um, yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. Well, let's wrap it up here. Predrag, I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for your time. If people want to learn, a little bit more about your company, maybe you can share your website and any other details.
Yes, it's morescreens.com.
Very simple.
More
Yeah,
simple.
very. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for everyone who joined live. We really appreciate that, and for those who, who listened on the replay, as we say, remember you can join live, and you get a chance to answer questions or ask questions, and we'll do our very best to answer them. So, thank you again, and pre-drag. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too, Mark. And looking forward to seeing you soon, summer, on one of
Likewise.
shows.
That's right. That's right.